There are some words forming in my head because a lot of what I think does not really fit into my work. It's very output focused, and more often than not, you don't get the time to enjoy the process. And because everything is output focused, everything has to be very fast. A lot of what I do on the side is I take a lot of time with it. I don't like it when it is time bound. And every time I try to apply some of this analog life into my digital life, it doesn't work out. I'm the sort of person who likes variety and not consistency. I don't want to do one thing for a long time. Not everything I'm interested in has to be a business. This fermentation is very important and I can't rush it. I have tried before and it just comes out like tap water, but I want it to be beer.
Hello and welcome to Your Heart's Content, a show where we try to analyze the parts of content that really matter. We talk to musicians, artists, illustrators, designers, stand-up comics, folks in the business of content, all in a bid to try and understand this space of content a little better and how you could benefit from it. In this episode, we speak to Hari Chakyar. Hari is a guy who I have been wanting to interview for years, and this was the perfect opportunity. It's hard to describe what Hari actually is. Yes, by profession, he's a copywriter, but I know him more as a person who has these insane content projects, I want to call them, on Instagram, where he just does everything from bad jokes to deeply meaningful zines, where he does actual physical zines and converts them into digital versions. And the topics again vary from just bad jokes all the way to the deeply profound, say, like stories and reflections about, say, his dad or his friends or his cat or his relationship. Hari's Instagram is an absolute vibe, as the kids would say, but in completely different ways from what the kids might mean. With Hari, we speak about a whole bunch of things, including how to choose which format goes with which kind of idea, how to come out with various kinds of ideas, or just the power of observation that leads to these ideas. We also speak about fermentation, the art of just letting something, ferment, sit in your head and, just giving it time so that magic comes out of it later. We have this, like I said, has been a conversation I've been wanting to have for a very long time, and I'm glad we finally managed to get Hari down here on a rainy Friday afternoon, and we had a blast over time. It's one of the warmest episodes of this series, and we hope you enjoy it and take away from it as much as we hosts did. So here's a chat with Hari Chakyar. Hari, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here. I wanted to tell you, I regret not making time for Simplified when you called me. So I made sure to clear my entire day today.
Making amends.
Yes, totally.
I genuinely don't know where to go from there. I have never been flabbergasted by something that was guest as on the show. Hari, there are just so many places that we could start with this. So let's just dive right into it. Tell us about Paperwala.
Oh, that goes...
we've done some deep cut research for this one.
Paperwala, so I've always been interested in arts and craft. I was a very crafty person. It started in school. I was always cutting and sticking paper.
Outside the arts and crafts curriculum,
of course. This was all out. I was very good with crafts in school, as when crafts was a subject. And I just continued, cutting and pasting paper. People used to call it collage, but I wasn't making layers of paper. So It wasn't really a collage. It was more like paper cut. And then eventually, once the internet came about, it became, there were more people doing this kind of work. I discovered that there's something called self-healing cutting mat. Okay. Which is nothing but, you have seen a lot of these. It's a green color, generally a green color thing with a grid on it. And any blade you use on it, the cut doesn't stay on it. It just self-heals. I found it magical. And there is a design knife that you can use with it in order to cut into the paper. So it gives you the ability to make very small, nice cuts into the paper without, spoiling the blade. And yeah, so I used to use that to make paper wala, paper cut frames. Some people wanted frames for their home, so I would make stuff for them. I just thought the name paper wala was nice.
Did it what was Paperwala at its peak? Because I do know that you were. Did you ever sell them?
I mean, to friends. There was no online shop or anything. It was very unorganized. People said, "Hey, मेरे को एक गणपति बना के देगा?" मैं हाँ, गणपति बना के देगा.
Did you at any point of time ever think that could become, a revenue stream?
Sure, I did, but I still don't think of things like that. It's anything that I do for the fun of it, and not because I want to make money out of it. And it's not that I have not tried. Okay, when I was in school, I was in my colony, at least. I was the only one reading. I was reading comics. I was reading small novels. Famous Five, Nancy Drew kind of thing. And I realized no one else around me was reading. So I said, chala, library chalu karte. So I started a circulating library out of home.
Okay.
And which led me to the realization that one, not everyone wants to read. And two, not everything I'm interested in has to be a business. And I also realized that I'm the sort of person who likes variety and not consistency. I don't want to do one thing for a long time. And that is what it would become if I made a business out of it. I would have to continue doing that same thing, and I don't want to get stuck doing that one thing. So, which is why Paperwala was just, I still have the cutting mat and the tools, and whenever I feel like cutting paper, I get back into it. But it's not something I do regularly because there are a million other things that I want to do.
And the million other things is something that we will definitely talk about. I mean, there's just so many things to speak about, just to branch out from there, right? But I think the most important thing is what you said, which is just about the sheer joy of creating, right? Like, one reason I've been wanting to speak to you before and for this series specifically is, at least in my friend circle, nobody espouses joy of creation better than you. It's something that Utsav and I speak about in our course, where a lot of people, when they say, okay, creator, YouTuber, etc., there's always this expectation or sense of, oh, okay, I have to game the algorithm and all that sort of thing. And we feel that somewhat takes away from the joy of creation by itself. And we're not being idealistic. It's the way we did our projects. And I'd like to think that whatever success we have today is on the base of that. And when I was thinking of, okay, who out there espouses or, typifies as the most, it wasn't a contest really. And I think to your fans, that might be a little frustrating because we don't know. And I'm saying...
By the way, why do you think you don't have fans? Your expression felt like, I don't have fans. Hari, you have fans. I hope you realize that. He's so almost like... no, this
Chambichu, as we would say in Malayalam. But no, but jokes apart, Hari, nobody I know just shares has a joy of creation to the extent where, I seem to have a good thing running, but I am going to stop doing it now, no matter what my friends or the market wants, and I'm just going to move on to another thing. Talk to us about that a little bit. How did that mindset come about? I don't even know if it's a mindset, because you just move from one thing to the other. And the Instagram that you have today is going to be something very different from what it was 6 months or a year back. And there's just so much joy to be discovered in all the various random things that you do. So yeah, it's a very broad question, I know.
Okay, so this is just streams of thought. I haven't spent time thinking about this or anything, but
this is the show for that.
Awesome. This was during the pandemic when a friend of mine sent Austin Kleon's video to me. Austin Kleon is a creative director. He lives in Austin, Texas, and he's a zine maker. He sent a zine video to me. So this is a zine where you take one A4 sheet of paper and you fold it and make it into one tiny booklet of a zine, right? So A4 zine it's called. So he sent it to me, and I then started following Austin Kleon and the other kinds of things that he does. One of the things that he talks about is how anything that you do, you need this constant inspiration in order to continue doing it. Keep going into the project and to eventually finish it. One way of getting that juice and validation is to share your work.
Yeah.
So share with people, show them the kind of things that you are doing, and it doesn't have to be online and on social media if you're worried of what people might say. It can be friends, family, whoever. And the things that they will talk to you about, the things that they will respond with, will help you generate enough steam to eventually see the project through.
Nice.
Now, this is something that I retrofitted into my psyche, and this I resonated with what Austin Kleon was saying. But I also realized that this is how I have always been. Ever since school, I have always been doing new random things by itself. So one zine I made a couple of years ago was I made a tiny cardboard car. It's a flat 2D car. I cut it into the shape of a car. I stuck a safety pin under it with sellotape, put it on a sheet of paper, and then I stuck a magnet under the sheet of paper. And if I move the magnet, it looks like the car is moving. And I can then draw a road on the paper, and it looks like, oh my God, this car is moving on the road. I've been playing with magnets ever since I was a kid, my mom tells me now. And I was just playing. A couple of times I blew the fuse at home because I wanted to see what happens.
I wonder, what's this red button do? Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
So a lot of this was, चल ना ये करके देखते क्या होता है.
What does this button do?
Yeah.
A lot of it was that. So I went home recently. My parents now live in Thrissur. And when they packed up from Ambernath is where I grew up. When they packed up from the house, they took everything back with them. They took everything to Thrissur. And every now and then when they are, arranging stuff in their new house, they bring out stuff that I might have made when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So this time, the last time I went, there was one. It was a folded sheet of paper that they showed me, and I have no recollection of what that is. And they are like, "See if you want this, or we'll just burn it." Okay.
Wow, not even trash. That escalated.
Where they live, there's no garbage collection. So the only way to get rid of waste stuff is how we'll put this in the chula, adupilidum, and all of that. So I take this sheet of paper, I open it, and it opens into like multiple folds,
sure.
right? So what I have made is I have a vague memory now of making a prototype. I didn't have this word then. I've made this with paper, and it has multiple pockets. So I realized that I have made a sort of thing to keep all my pencils and tools and stationery items in. And if I made this in cloth, I could roll it and tie it with a string. So I've made a paper prototype for this kind of thing, and I've made this in school and forgotten about it. And probably played with magnets or blown the fuse. This is the kind of stuff that I've always been doing. It's just that, working in advertising and digital and whatever this is called nowadays, somehow I feel like a lot of this creative process that I have grown up with is somehow a part of my formal work also, and there is some sort of structure to it now, but there is also also a disconnect because a lot of what I think does not really fit into my work.
Yeah.
So there is also I feel like there's something missing somewhere.
Yeah, and I think one part of it is just for exploration. Let's push this button and see what it does. Whereas it's not just a failing of advertising and all that, but business as a whole, you have very limited
room for
something like that to happen. And it is maybe the more progressive companies that actually say, okay, 20% of a budget, let's put it in the push this button and see what happens. And maybe those become outsized successes later. But maybe that's really where the disconnect kind of comes from. But before we get into that,
just one thing I want to talk about. You spoke about Austin Kleon, right? Is he the person who also wrote the book Steal Like an Artist?
Yes.
And I think Show Your Work or something of that.
Yes, he has a series of these books.
These books, right? And I think what you touched upon is that the entire thing of blowing up fuses or magnets is, in some sense, it's given you a toolkit.
Yeah.
Right? And that toolkit is what you are saying applies to your, life.
In some ways.
And work. But at the same time, you're saying that there's something is missing. Right? Can you articulate for yourself what is that missing?
Okay. So, when I do this kind of thing, when I'm making a zine or I'm making stuff with magnets, there's a deep satisfaction that I get out of it. There is something, something happened because of the way that I put some effort into it. Like, I'm not able to get that kind of satisfaction from my regular work, and that has bothered me for a while.
Okay. So, and do you think the satisfaction comes to you from the process itself of doing this, or does the satisfaction come to you from the end result of that process? Which part of it do you lean heavily on when you're doing these projects?
So when we there are some words forming in my head.
Episode promo done.
I think you need to take all the letters you made with dosa and put them in your head and make the words.
See, in terms of advertising, it is the output that matters.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of money riding on it and everything. So it's very output focused. And more often than not, you don't get the time to enjoy the process. And because everything is output focused, everything has to be very fast. A lot of what I do on the side is I take a lot of time with it. I don't like it when it is time bound. And every time I try to apply some of this analog life into my digital life, it doesn't work out. It doesn't. That is, I think, the dissatisfaction that I was talking about.
So then it's really about the process in many ways and the joy of just
immersing yourself in that process of
and just getting lost in doing that. I'm sure the outcome matters. Like, I'm sure when you put something out there, especially something that you've taken a lot of time, even lovingly crafting and putting together, you will look at audience reaction and all that sort of thing. It may not necessarily guide how things are going in the future, since you have a very ruthless Netflix-like habit of culling things in their first season itself. But I'm sure that plays on your mind. But yeah, I think the answer that I'm gauging is it's really more about the process. I want to ask you, how did you, I am assuming this happened recently, the whole folding out paper prototype thing?
Not too long.
Yeah. So how did the mid-30s you feel when you saw that thing that, I don't know, what 5-year-old, 10-year-old Hari had created? Did you feel impressed by yourself? Did you feel...
I was very impressed. Without knowing the word prototype, I was thinking, so my mom used to have a sewing machine. It was an old Usha that she had brought to Ambernath from Kerala. And in my head somewhere, I think I was thinking, okay, I will make this in paper first, and if it works, I will get the cloth and I will get my mom to make this for me for the color pencils and everything. So it blew my mind that I had made a prototype of this kind. And yeah, adult me was impressed with young Hari.
That's kind of lovely. Like, and the reason I say that is, and again, this is mid-30s men realization sort of happening. Is sometimes when I'm trying to figure out the world right now, right? Like, and it could be whatever. Like, it could be what gives me happiness. What's the kind of music I like? What are the kind of experiences I like? It's almost like a direct parallel to what I enjoyed as a kid, and why we have had these conversations several times, right? Why do I like these bands but not these bands? I could draw a direct parallel to why I liked these cartoons but not these which everybody else seemed to like. But I wasn't too fond of that, It kind of makes me think that there are some fundamental things that every person is wired with, and that just keeps kind of evolving over time. I don't know if that's too philosophical a reading, but experience like yours makes me think that, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, whatever you have during childhood, it's going to be a kind of more evolved world. Everything's going to be built on top of that, as long as you're staying authentic and true to yourself, etc. If you're going to be doing it for whatever the reach, or for the money gets in the way or whatever, obviously you're going to deviate a lot. And I don't know, we've seen these movies and things, right? When for somebody who strayed so much onto the commercial part, going away from what their heart really was, which when you're a kid, that's what you do. You look back and they say, oh man, like remember those innocent times when I was just sitting and doing something like, it feels like the theme for either a soon to be cancelled Netflix series or soon to be cancelled Hari Chakyar zine series as well.
Remember when everything wasn't called content?
Yes,
absolutely. That is I completely agree.
Yeah.
Do you think zines are content? It's a tough question to answer, right, actually?
Yeah, it is content if you consume it like content.
If you consume it. So, okay. So let's click on that then. What is consume it like content? Because you're going to read the same way, whether you consider it content or not.
Yeah, I think formats are only for the creators themselves.
Okay.
For everyone else, it is content.
Okay.
So a book is a book for the author. A zine is a zine for the zine maker. A song is a song for a lyricist or a singer. For everyone else, it is content in different formats.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
So you're saying that what the creator creates and what the audience consumes are two different products.
Maybe. काफी डीप हो गया नहीं होता है इतना
नहीं but so for example we're talking about zines, right?
Yeah.
Now when I am thinking of your zine, and of course my absolute favorite of all the projects you have done is the zine you did about your father, right? And I have forgotten the number of people I have sent it to, and so many of them have written back saying that this is one of the nicest things they have seen. They are not saying it's entertaining, it is profound, it is just nice.
Yeah, nice is my brand.
Nice is we will keep nice biscuit for next time. Edit out this bad joke from the recording.
Or do the recording in Nice, in France, which also...
Yes. Inshallah, one day we'll have that much money. But when I saw that zine, right, and in many ways, I thought of my own father, right, who... while I was very young when he passed away, but I had very similar memories of him, of being a very calm, kind, gentle person, right? And that was amazing for me. Like, I can't tell you how much I connected with that zine. And I feel almost emotional talking about it right now. But maybe that is not how you thought of it. I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand here, right? That there is a difference at some level in which how the creator creates and how the audience, for the lack of a better word, is actually interpreting. Have you felt that basis sometimes people write back to you on your work and you thinking, oh, I didn't think of this when I was making this?
So two things had to come together for the zine to happen, right? During the lockdown, I did a course in cyanotype printing. I took a course in, the instructor lived in Bangalore. And over Google Meet, she showed me, she gave me a list of chemicals to procure that I bought locally. And over 2 hours on Google Meet, she showed me how the process works. So it's a chemical process. You mix 2 chemicals in a solution in water, make a solution. Then you basically paint it onto a sheet of paper, and you let that piece of paper dry in darkness. It is photosensitive, so you keep it away from light. And then when the paper has dried, you take it out into the sun with, say, suppose you put this coaster on it, this star shape, right? You put this on the sheet of paper and expose it to the sun for say 10-15 minutes, and then you bring it back inside. You will see that on the sheet of paper, this shape has, the shape is white and everything else is dark, and then you wash the sheet of paper in water. It gives you this lovely blue kind of a cyan color, right? So this is the cyanotype process roughly. The zine, the writing itself, I was I do a lot of thinking about it. So a lot of it happens here. So it's fermenting, I call it, which fermenting over a long period of time. And then I put it down. I was only trying to process how my dad felt different from other dads. He's different from my friends' dads, and I was just trying to put down my thoughts. It just accidentally came out very nice and thoughtful and gentle and soft. And I used the cyanotype process because I wanted to practice cyanotype, and then I designed the frames for what I had written, and that is how the zine happened. So I wasn't actively trying to make something that that would make people cry, and people did. A friend of mine actually called me crying. He must have been, in a zone like that already. But he called me crying, and he told me how much he loved it. So yeah, it has definitely moved people. And thank you for sharing it.
And beyond ways which you probably imagined it.
Yeah, and my dad being dad, he saw it and he's like...
I loved his reaction. Please tell us.
Like, Dad, I asked him in Malayalam, Acha, ishtapata? Huh. That's it.
It's like there are, at one spectrum, people are crying looking at it, and you're like,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
that's it.
Oh man, hilarious. I think that's a great example of something that both has a story and sort of like, let's call it a treatment, right? Like let's use a zine as kind of like a case study. It's success, and I'll leave you to define that in whatever way you want. How much of that was because of this, and how much of that was because of this? Because of the stuff fermenting in your head and the stuff, say, fermenting on the sheets, as it were. Like, how much did the story matter? How much did the content matter? And how much did the form of it? And the form over here, I would also take it to the extent of saying not just cyanotype, but also the fact that it was a physical zine. How much did that matter? Do you think, for example, and if you take the story alone and distill it down to the easiest possible way to execute that, right? Which might just be, technically the easiest might just have been, say, a tweet thread or something like that, but you are way more evolved than that. So let's assume that it's just one of those Instagram carousels that just have, say, 4 lines of text on each of them. How would that treatment have been different from the content? It's exactly the same. The content and all that is exactly the same. You might have done some scribbles and all that. That versus the final form in which physical zine and cyanotype and all that sort of thing. How different do you think it would have been in terms of getting this reaction from people, or any other metric of success that you might have?
I think it is very different.
Yeah.
And I can say so because I have done both. I have done the carousel format, and I know from experience that I think the difference that this makes is this is a slightly longer read. This is up to 20 pages.
Yeah.
And what I also do is there is a creator's note section at the end of the zine as well, which is me putting down the process of how I made this so that I can remember. But I also thought of it as the BTS of the film, the behind the scenes, right? So I have that in all the longer zines. So this is about 20 pages. And I realized after I wrote it that this is not going to fit in Instagram. Even if I, make the carousel post, it is not going to fit in, and it just has way too much text to fit inside and be as nice on Instagram. Because it is 20 pages and because I have used the cyanotype treatment, it requires you to take some time out of your social media and read this thing with some focus. So you are reading it in one flow, no matter where you are reading it. You give it that much time, and there is time for you to reflect on the subject of the zine while you are reading it, which I think makes all the difference. And even before I put it in the format, the fermentation process itself,
Fermentation in your head?
In my head.
In your head, yeah. Important.
I think it is very important because it is some sort of an editing process. So while it has taken some form in my head, it is also being constantly, like the diamond is being polished in a lot of ways. And the editing can continue happening while I'm writing the text on the final listing. But even before I start putting it on paper, this fermentation is very important, and I can't rush it. I have tried before and it just comes out like tap water, but I want it to be beer.
And maybe that's a great analogy, by the way. No diss to water. Water is a great drink. But I think this is probably also where I feel goes back to your initial point of disconnect with advertising, right? That maybe there is not enough time for fermentation to ideas, right? That's why sometimes so much of advertising unfortunately feels like tap water. And I think I was just discussing this with Chuck. We were watching the T20 World Cup, and almost none of the advertising was memorable. Yeah. Right?
It probably did the job in terms of, I don't know, GRP or whatever, those things that you achieve.
Yeah, correct. But there was hardly any thought, I feel, in it. There was no creative thought, there was no creative insight or human insight lacking in them, which I find like literally boiling over in your work. Like I find it, and irrespective of what I have seen, and again, my interaction with you has already largely been, once we have met and a few times we have talked about the kind of work you do. What most fascinates me is that I think you don't realize how creative you are. I really want to say this at the sound of trying to, pump up my guests, because sure, I may only see some of the projects you may do, which you may choose to put out, and others you may not. But everything you have chosen to put out has that searing level of human understanding / empathy, right? Which I find so hard to see in so much other work. Have you thought about this in any way, or is it something which just happens or comes naturally to you?
Yeah, you said your brand is nice, but I mean, my Hari Chakyar brand slide is a lot more complicated than just that. So yeah.
Again, multiple things come to mind. A lot of this has to do with my upbringing. My parents are the nicest people I know. They might have their problems. They are products of their own generations.
Of course.
So there might be, wrong things that they say that can be casteist, can be racist. That is a constant process. And every time they say something wrong, it has to be called out, and they're like, വലിയ പഠിപ്പിസ്റ്റ് and all that. Someone who studies a lot is called a പഠിപ്പിസ്റ്റ് in Malayalam. It's slang.
Oh, so they're basically calling you have studied too much. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
तू अभी बड़ा शहर का बच्चा हो गया type kind of thing. They are still the nicest people, and nice to a fault. And that is, I think, something that I have imbibed, and I have grown up seeing them this way. Maybe a lot of this nice comes from them. My partner Tamanna, she studied psychology. She practiced as a counseling therapist for a while, but she's now given it up because it was too stressful for her. But she would come back home from college and we would have these lengthy chats about, empathy and compassion, and a lot of that, things about listening to someone and just being present while someone is talking to you and not, wandering inside your head. A lot of that made sense because this is how I saw my parents to be already without any psychology training. So I like, okay, maybe this is a nice way to be and this is who I am. I also feel like this is a great way to be because there is no pretense. People ask if I am different at work and different at home, and I'm like, nay, this is I don't have that kind of bandwidth to be different people. This is I like the way I am, and which is why nice is my brand. It is very effortless. It is easy for me.
Lovely, yeah. One thing I love about your projects is, like Utsav said, they're deeply insightful, but they're so slice of life, and these are things that millions of small things happen to each of us every day, which we just do as course of living life, I suppose. Maybe we are thinking about the one big thing, meeting or recording like this or whatever, but you are able to take a small moment and celebrate it in a way that I've seen very few other people, at least who I'm in touch with or who I follow, do. Like a very recent example being, and this is of course a tribute to our collected choice of hairstyle. You put out something recently called "A Million Fires Were Being Put Out" or something of that sort, and the crux of it essentially being you went to a barber, he shaved your head and then put aftershave, and then of course that's about. And you ended, I think, with the Scream, with the version of the Scream. Now, that's exactly what I was saying a while back, which is this small thing. If you distilled it down to one line, just be that I went for a head shave, put aftershave, and boy, that was tingly. That's it. A fairly unmemorable tweet or whatever, but what you've done is taken that little observation and you have kind of made it something very beautiful, memorable, and of course the comments bear it out, right? That's such a cute way of looking at it and all that sort of thing. And I laughed so much when I saw that, and I saw the very next day I had to do this, and I actually had to stop myself from stop and remember, okay, listen, you will cut yourself and you're going to do a bunch of recordings, so get yourself together. No, I don't have a question over there really. I think it's more just an observation about of your observation, right? How do you take these small moments and how do you decide that, okay, this is the small slice of life that I'm actually going to create something out of? That is question number one. And question number two is, again, on that whole idea versus format discussion, right? I feel that you're a guy for whom you think of the idea first, the heart of the idea. This is the thing that I want to celebrate, and then the format comes after that. Okay, is this best celebrated through a zine, through a carousel, through words, through bad jokes, through this, through that? I feel like the format, you're very format flexible that way. So two-pronged and
it
long
almost
question.
feels like if you are exploring a medium at that point in time as your interest and curiosity, the story adapts to that
pretty much.
It feels like that you are so invested in learning and enjoying that medium that somehow the story also is the story which comes to you, which fits that medium.
I don't think that you would launch a podcast just because others are doing it. I feel like you will pick a topic which can be expressed best or only through a very certain kind of medium. At least that's how I think of you.
Right. So a lot of what format should this idea come out as happens here. It's part of my fermentation process, and I'm constantly thinking about, okay, well, how is this best portrayed?
How is it best portrayed, or how is it easiest for you to get out?
No, it's not about the
Easiest to get out.
Cyanotype is a
Of course, it's a
pain to work
really
with.
hard
All
medium,
of
I'm
those 20, 22 frames had to be individually hand cut in paper, then put on a sheet of paper and sun exposed and washed and scanned, and then I had to write the text on it. So it is hard work. It doesn't look like that, but cyanotype is painful. So it's not when it comes to these fun projects, it's not about how easily can we do this. It's about what is the best way to tell this story. So that is the format part of it. The first question that you asked about, the highlight of the day. So in 2017 or so, I started keeping a visual journal.
Okay.
And I keep telling myself that I want to be a graphic novelist one day. That is one aspiration that I have. And I said, in order to be able to draw as much, I'll have to start by teaching myself how to draw, because I can't draw human figures. And if I'm telling a human story, I need to draw humans. I need to know how the human anatomy works. For that, I'll need to practice. And I said, why don't I keep a visual journal and I can practice drawing every day. And what I told myself is that every night before going to bed, I would write and draw the highlight of my day.
Nice.
So then every day then I am on the lookout for nice things to happen around me or to me, and I will then pay more attention to it so that I'll remember the details, and then I know how to draw it or where to draw it. I'll click a picture of it so that I have a reference. It doesn't always work out. Like, for example, something nice that recently happened is it didn't make it to my journal, but it's still very fresh in my head. Traffic cops nowadays have someone in a camouflage uniform standing with them. I don't know what department they belong to, but I think they are here to help with traffic, mitigation
Management, yeah.
management. And this was that time in the evening where schools have closed and the kids are going back home. So there's this small kid about 5-6 years. He's accompanied by his mom. The mom is wearing his school bag on one of her shoulders, and the kid just stops in front of this uniformed person and wants to shake his hand. And this man, he just looks at the kid, gives his hand, and then he starts beaming. He smiles his biggest smile ever. He doesn't want to shake the traffic cop's hand. It's just the other camouflage soldier. He just shook his hand, and the boy just left. He's dancing, and this man just can't stop smiling. And then he sees me, and then his smile just fades. Yeah. So this thing. So when I was starting out with my visual journaling thing, I said I will document the highlight of my day. So this would be highlight of my day, and it happened just too quickly for me to click a picture or document it in any other way. So then I would sit down and in whatever way possible I would try to draw this, and then I would use my words to complement the story. So that is how it began. I'm not able to stick to the habit of sitting down and doing the journal thing every day, but every now and then it comes out like an Instagram post where the story is just there and it refuses to leave my head, and I know, boss, I have to get it out of my head, have to make space for other things. So that is how it comes out.
We are looking at it.
That is how these things come out.
Fascinating. Like I'm just thinking it would be so awesome to just have a book of those small observations of Hari's 365. But again, I'm thinking now in terms of format, I'm falling into that trap. We have got Hari over here, and now and look at us just thinking all commercially with respect to all of this. A lot of your art or let me say creative output is deeply physical. You have spoken about it in we've spoken about it at length already, but I want to ask you specifically with respect to this, because you are also a person who does some digital things. You take photos, you scribble on top of that, and of course that I'm sure has its own kind of process, rewards, etc. Today, when the world is moving so digital, choosing to focus on something that is physical, you answered the why to some extent, and also, the joy that it gives you. So if we approach it from a much broader perspective, right, beyond you, beyond us, you're kind of seeing what I want to sort of call the revival of the physical in some way, where people are happy to listen to music in older formats, or there's this whole wave of book talk in the US, where it's ironically the younger generation who's actually driving sales of physical books and all that sort of thing. And recently somebody who we spoke to actually on the show, said that their media diet starts with a physical newspaper, even though he works in the online news industry. Again, as you can I don't really have a question over here. It's just a thought that I have. Like, is this like love for the physical, this newfound love for the physical, is it maybe because of a reaction to overstimulation and these devices are just giving us too much to consume, or you're feeling a little disconnected from the art and the artist? Any thoughts that you have around that? I understand for you it becomes a very cathartic way almost to put what's in your head out, but from an audience accepting this perspective, like for example, were you surprised at the fact that so many people wanted your zines and were willing to sign up for a 12 month subscription?
Thank you for subscribing also.
Yeah, yes, and I have all of them like stashed away in a file.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know so many people would want a physical zine coming to them every month. But that also comes from the idea that we have stopped writing letters.
Yeah.
And we have stopped writing emails also nicely. Most emails have become very functional.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's almost bullet point writing at some level.
Yeah.
We have stopped writing letters, and I realized I love receiving letters, like a sheet of paper that you take out of an envelope and you open, and
ritual to it.
Yeah, and Amit Verma keeps talking about it. When you write something, you have to sit down, you have to distill your thoughts, and I think he talks about the email, but the writing the letter itself is a process. And I think it is beautiful that someone thought of you and sat down to write some thoughts to you and took the effort to put it in mail, to have it come to you. It's beautiful. So that is part of where the zine subscription thing came from. So I wasn't this digital until my partner bought me an iPad.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to play with Procreate, and I kept talking about it, and I think she was fed up of how much I was talking about it, so she decided to shut my mouth and threw an iPad at me. So all my most of my online comics now I make on Procreate. I'm very friendly with the app now. The other analog kind of play, what I realized is that once I did the cyanotype printing course, I want to try and experiment with more print making. Print making is a huge thing, and a lot of designers and graphic designers are actively pursuing print making. I am also very interested in print making. I did a few experiments with linocut printing, which is a rubber sheet that you cut into with knives and tools, and you put ink on it, and then you use it's essentially stamping. You create your own stamps in order to make prints on paper. It doesn't have to be that also. You can print with a potato. And these are the kind of things we have done in craft class in school. Yeah, so you don't need fancy things to make prints. You just need a potato. So yeah, playing with a lot of tools and which makes a lot of my work analog. And illustration is something that I'm trying to teach myself, but there is no one kind of illustration. And illustration doesn't mean only drawing. I can also illustrate using paper and any random objects. So there are really no rules, and I'm an excited kid.
Yeah, it
trying
definitely
to
does.
play with formats and
Yeah, it definitely does seem like that. Any thoughts on that larger observation about this newfound love for the physical?
I don't know if it is newfound. I think that there were always people who were,
We are an inherently physical species in that
yes.
sense.
So there are people who continue doing analog photography despite digital photography being such a big thing. And because photography and Instagram and everything is just so instant nowadays, that there is, I think a lot of people don't know that it is so much joyful to see your print coming alive in the tub of chemicals, right? So, yeah, I think it's always been there, and every now and then people discover it, so it becomes a new wave.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's all about, again, everything that you said, right? Being present in the moment, taking a little more joy, taking a little more thought, right? Because remember when we all used to use film cameras, how many times we would think before
constructing an image. Actually, it was called constructing an image because you had to think about what you're trying to capture
and whether it's worth spending 1/36 of your precious film on. Wow, I
I
remember
have so many photos with a black band here on my forehead. Old childhood photos. I don't know who clicked it.
No, but I think the physicality of it, like until a few years ago, I used to actually send out physical postcards to my friends from my travels, right? And it was not that I was trying to personalize a message to them. It was just a thought which I had during the travels, which I just to put down and write. And almost every single friend of mine, and this one friend in particular, he has a box he has kept where he's kept all my postcards.
Wow.
He's like, I treasure these postcards because it feels, it's not just a question of, relics of a bygone era, but it's also a question of, even if you thought of me in that fleeting moment, while you were on a vacation and you thought, hey, I want to send this to him because I think he will like it.
Yeah.
He's like, to me, that emotion is very valuable.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a personalized postcard. Sure, I write their names and I sign off with my love, but it's the same message to pretty much every friend because I thought this thing will resonate with you, which is why I'm sending it to you. And there is a lot of value which I think we attach to it even today.
Yeah, I think we as a species really appreciate effort. I just to give another example of something that you said a while back, there's this book called Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. I highly recommend it to almost everybody that I meet, and this is an example that he says that if you're a salesperson, if you want to reach say marketing head in a company or something, the easiest way to do that might be to use like a platform like LinkedIn, right? Where you have the person is right over there and you can send a mail sitting like, or whatever message or whatever sitting in your AC office, whatever, hardly any effort, it's targeted, all that sort of thing. The downside to that is, so does everybody else have access to this easy to use tool, which means that poor person is going to get overwhelmed or like everything's going to be whatever. And then he goes on to say, if you really want to catch that person's attention, again, Hari, write that person a letter because it's super inconvenient to do. There's a certain bit of novelty factor and you can almost guarantee that thing is going to be opened if nothing else, right? And I think it's a direct parallel to this. Yeah, sure, I can take a photo of this nice place and send it to a friend who's like, hey, I know you like this. That itself is effort rather than just putting it up on Instagram and then hoping that the algorithm gods find their way to find this, match the two together. But yeah, ultimately, I think we as humans do appreciate that effort. Rory also goes on to say, and he always draws like a real life example to something that's, it is essentially a marketing book, right? He says you wouldn't propose to your girlfriend over text, right? You want to make a whole song and dance. You want to make it inconvenient almost to show that you care so much. And I think it goes back to that, putting in effort, especially in this day and age where it's so easy to get a thought from point A to point B across, that putting in effort almost is a means to show that hey, I care, or I want your attention, really. So I don't know. I mean,
Interestingly, you say that. That's exactly how I asked my wife to marry me, by the way.
fair. Okay, the last time I asked this question, I was speaking to two people involved in the craft brewing industry. Tell me about your fermentation process.
Oh, I don't know if I have a process.
Because you kept using the word fermentation, so I just want to ask you about that.
Yeah, it is not very scientific.
No, and that's completely okay. Most of the good answers.
Neither is most of craft brewing.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's very specific.
Yeah, but
I don't know if there is a process. Honestly, there is always a list of in my head. Again, it's
Yeah.
not. I haven't
Of
put
course.
it down anywhere. There's always a list that I'm building of things that I want to do. Like for example, on the list is to learn how to operate a drone.
okay.
There is an artist in Goa, I forget his name, but he makes art on sand and he documents everything using drones. That is something I want to do. And I obviously want a drone for myself. Yeah, so this is something I want to do. So,
I want to click on that a little bit. Do you want the drone specifically for this as an outcome, or do you just want a drone because, like, okay, I can take this with me on my travels or whatever and have nice shots? So, because what you said is a very, very specific
it
use
is
case
very
for a
specific.
drone. Yeah.
It is very specific. Like most things I want to do, it is possible that my interest in this will wane after I have done the sand thing. It is very possible. This is how I'm wired. Apologies to my parents and my wife.
That's completely fine. But yeah.
On the fermentation bit, right? See, one of the things when we teach 6% club cohort members is that we say that don't wait for your idea to become perfect, right? Just put it out. How do you feel that this idea is now ready in my head to take a physical form? How is there at what point do you decide, or is there a criteria, for the lack of a better word, I don't know, that you say, yeah, now I think this is ripe, I should just do it now?
This is something I'm still developing, but when I had to think of DVCs, digital video commercials for work, one of the check boxes in my head is it making me cry? Is the thought so beautiful कि मुझे रोना आ जाए? Am I moved by this idea in any way? Is it?
You are an advertising man stuck in the wrong decade. It's just what I wanted to interject. Please continue.
I think this is something I think about a lot. I think a lot of my dissatisfaction comes from being in digital. Maybe I should explore some mainline advertising. Maybe there is still some joy left.
Fair enough, actually. Yeah.
So does this idea move me? Is it making me laugh or cry? Does this have anything unusual in it? That is my criteria. So when I wrote that the zine about my dad, it moved me to bits. I was ready to cry. I was also accompanying my cousin at a hospital then. I was his hospital companion. So I had a tiny little bed to myself. I had forgotten my notebook and I just felt the urge to write it down. We had bought some food for my cousin, and there was a wrapping paper there, and I went to the nurse's station to borrow a pen, and that is how I wrote down the entire thing, because I just couldn't. It was making me cry, and I just had to get it out on paper. So I knew it was ready to get out of me. Other times I feel like, okay, maybe the editing has stopped in my head, so I need to get this out, and maybe the editing can then continue fermenting outside of me. So both of these things happen. It's not either or.
You said that there are other things that you want to do. You started with the drone example. Any others, like any other things that you want to do? I mean, you said you have a list, for example. So,
one thing. So when I saw that the announcement for 6% Club, I thought of this one project that I have been sitting on for ages, and not just sitting on. I keep adding layers to it, so it is fermenting in some way. This is a mythological storytelling set in a nature walk. That is what
wow,
it is.
Okay.
So it is a nature walk, and I've done a lot of nature walks because I used to be a part of Wilson College Nature Club, and we used to do a lot of walks. We have it used to be led by Professor Sudhakar Solomon Raj. He's one of the people I look up to in.
I have attended a class. I think we've discussed that.
Yeah.
But that's story for another time. Go
Correct. So he's since retired, and but we still do walks every now and then. I thought of this idea of doing a storytelling kind of a piece inside Sanjay Gandhi National Park. It doesn't have to be the national park also. It can be any wooded area. What I would do is I would attach or complement one story with one particular tree. Like for example, in Mahabharata there are stories where people are hiding inside a tree, or Arjun had to hide his weapons in one particular tree. So I thought it would be very interesting if I could show people a certain tree and then tell them a story that is related somehow to this tree. This is something that has been brewing. I really want to do this. And when I left my last company, I told myself that there are a lot of these things that have been pending, and I want to finish these things before I go back to work. And I haven't. Other things have come in the way. I will one day, soon.
that's like what I like with you've given us only two things, and I suspect that there's a much deeper list, which fair enough, I won't prod you further on that. But what I like is the range, right? There is something that you want. I mean, like, genuinely, I did not expect. I expected a lot of things to leave your mouth today, but I did not expect I want to buy a drone to be one of those. So you have something, but then it all made sense when you say, yeah, I want to do sand art and then drone will take photo. Like, yeah, that sounds like Hari. So that, and this is, I mean, a reasonably well-formed, not a reasonably, is
Very
as
well-formed,
well-formed idea as it was. So, I mean, is it, the follow-up question to that is, like, there are some things that might be skills. Let's call them skills, like learn how to, skills or acquisitive, let's call that. I want to buy this, or I want to do this, I want to attend this, or whatever. And then there are, like, okay, there's these sprawling big projects that I want to do. Maybe like this, you have another idea for a book or another idea for another kind of zine, which we wouldn't have thought about with another material or stuff, things like that. Do you look at it this way? Do you look at the composition of your brain this way? Do you, like, for example, there are a few skills that I want to do. At the same time, there are certain projects that I want to do. And for me, it's fairly clear as to what kind of falls where. And it's almost like, as I go through life collecting experiences, speaking to people smarter than me, so on and so forth, it's almost like I'm collecting ammo for all of this. Maybe that's my version of fermentation, but how do you look at it that way? So you also said something which was so beautiful a while back, which is, I need to get it out of my system so that I can make space for new things almost. So yeah, I just want to know how, like, this might seem like a very bad way of putting it, but how do you categorize your head?
I don't think I categorize it at all. There is a list of things that I want to do, and I want
and it doesn't matter whether it is here or here, whether it is learn to fly a drone, whether it is start a new kind of nature walk. Yeah. It doesn't matter. These are both in the same list for you.
Yeah, and there is no particular order in which I want to do them. I think there is a time and space for everything, and it will eventually happen.
It will eventually come out. So you believe in the fact that when an idea, and I suppose the wrapping paper story that you said is a perfect example of this. When the idea is, I mean, when it's right, when the time is right, it will manifest itself in some way or the other. You believe in that?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about what is the kind of content you consume. I want to understand what your media diet looks like, because not only you keep discovering and experimenting new formats for yourself, right? At the same time, you're also, for example, the Cyanotype example which we had, or Austin, who we talked about, right? They are very diverse kind of people you are. How do you go about this rabbit hole discovery process of, oh, this is an art form I want to explore? How does that happen for you?
Obscurity of sources.
Oh. Okay. That's
think
a great term, by the way.
I think I think Edison has said this in some way, and I keep coming back to this. A lot of this reading and thinking about creativity and stuff happened after I went through a burnout phase.
Sure.
This dissatisfaction that I was talking about led to came to some sort of a standstill in my head where I was very exhausted, and I made a zine about it too. It's called Nursing a Burnout.
Yeah.
It came to a point where I felt like I'm not able to think anymore. I'm not able to think copy. I'm not able to think of any ideas. It felt like there is a well of ideas somewhere above my head, and it has run dry. So then I started reading about. Obviously, it took a while. I'm still going through it in some way. About the kind of things that you put into this reservoir that will replenish your process or juice, or however you look at it. Until then, I took ideas for granted. I just believed that they will just keep coming, and I can keep pushing myself, and the ideas will just come. That is the kind of youthful foolishness you start off working with. After this, I'm more intentional about the kind of things I consume, and one piece that fits into this is our professor. She was a visiting professor at Wilson College in BMM for understanding cinema. It used to be one of the subjects. One thing she said has stuck, and she said, no matter how bad a film is, there will always be something to learn from it. It can be the worst film that you have ever seen, but there will always be something to take home from it. Can be one camera angle, it can be one edit technique, it can be something a character says, it'll be one piece of dialogue or something. There will always be something to learn from. I think I try and apply this to everything now. So when I'm reading a book, I'm not trying to completely understand it. Even if a small bit of it sticks with me, it's there. So I think I've become more intentional when it comes to consuming content. I'm not very discerning because my wife complains that I watch all kinds of stuff. So I will watch. Sometimes I watch smut because why not? There is always stuff to learn from smut also. True. I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of OTT. Reading has reduced, but I read myself to sleep nowadays. And I consume a lot of Instagram. So a lot of rabbit holes that you mentioned come via Instagram. And then if something gets me curious, I then go and look for it. I think that is how I've been putting stuff into my reservoir.
I feel like you constructively use Instagram, like not as a creator of obviously, but
consumer as well.
Yeah, because till now, and to be fair to Instagram, there is a lot of good stuff out there. I think we tend to paint it with this is a time sink and all that. Just to ask you on that last thing that you said, how do you actually end up discovering rabbit holes starting through Instagram? Or is your usage of Instagram itself a little more conscious?
I think it's got to do with the algorithm now, because I have looked for stuff, similar stuff it comes looking for me. It finds me. So I consume a lot of art related content, a lot of printmaking, a lot of design. So I end up seeing a lot of, when you look at design, you do end up looking at typography.
Yeah.
A lot of architecture design comes and finds you. Graphic design, obviously. So I think I just told Instagram what I like, and
it's very interesting because you typically think of this same mechanism in a very negative way, right? You see misinformation, you fall for that, you're going to get more of that. You see one kind of bland content or whatever, you're going to keep getting more of that. But you kind of taken that literally the same algorithm and said, hey, okay, what if the starting point was something a little more interesting or something a little more informative or whatever it is. You're just going down. Ultimately, I suppose all time wasting on Instagram in some way is some form of rabbit hole, except that you've chosen to keep it away. I don't know whether it's a very simplistic or very generous reading.
No, I'm sure that is how it started. I started saving the kind of things that
and that really sends a signal to the algorithm. Yeah.
And a lot of it started with referencing for work and maybe saving it to send it to my design partners at work, or saving. I have a saved album called Try, where I keep saving stuff to do. One of the things in it is this toy kind of thing, which is a person made out of a milk Tetra Pak. It's those, and it's made out of the U-clip. So you bend a U-clip in order to create a character that looks like it is running, and you can put your face on it. So I'm going to make me running on a Tetra Pak. It's just something.
Wow. And also, it's a great recurring question to ask our guests: what have you saved on your Instagram? That's actually a very, very
sort of also reminds me of the stuff you did with flies.
Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes, sorry.
Yeah. I think it was like a way of getting revenge, like avenging all the bites, because they were bothering me, and I think it came out of some sort of rage. So I killed mosquitoes. I put all of them on a sheet of paper, and I drew tiny beds around the mosquitoes, and I called it Mosquito Morgue.
This is again a Hari Chakyar project.
Yeah. I mean, how many people have asked you how does that brain of yours work?
No, it's just both of you.
Just both. In case anyone asks you in the future, you will soon have a link to sort of say anything that you want to speak about that we haven't covered, either a specific project or a part of your life or anything at all that you would like to talk about.
So we haven't spoken about me cross-dressing. I don't mind talking about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, sure. Okay. There is.
So how do we?
I have a segue.
Okay. You didn't ask me anything about dosa at all.
Yeah, because it was already very visible. I figured out what the process was of that. But sure, happy to.
Yeah. So this is something which I have sort of noticed in a lot of your stories, right? About you being very open about your identity as a man, and being very open about conversation of sexuality, right? And this I think it shows up in your work as well, right? So for example, I don't think most men, when they create a nursing a burnout thing, would think of breastfeeding, right? Most men will not come up with that, but you were able to, right? And help me understand that thing about you thinking on these lines about your experience of cross-dressing and how it plays in your head. Help me understand that.
Which is still, I believe, the first pinned post on your Instagram.
It is
the time of this recording.
I've kept it there on purpose. I started cross-dressing as a teen. It was just something that felt good doing, and it was also wrapped in a lot of guilt, because it felt like I was doing something wrong, and there was no one else around me who was doing anything like that. And it's not like people were going around talking about it, because no one would. You didn't know whom to talk to about things like this. So I carried it for quite a while, until the internet arrived, and I discovered that it has a name. It's called cross-dressing, and if it has a name, it means there are other people doing stuff like
right.
this. So there were pictures of other people, wearing women-like clothing, and yeah, so that was a big relief. And I've also discovered that I am bisexual over the years. It's taken some time, but hey, this is not a competition, so
Almost nothing in life is, but yeah, I get where you're coming from.
yeah. So I spend some time on Grindr. I'm not actively looking to hook up, but hey, I don't mind talking to people. Eventually, maybe we'll meet or whatever. A lot of people tell me that I am lucky. And that I'm brave, that my partner understands that I am a cross-dresser, which makes me realize that a lot of men want to do this and are not able to, because somehow they are in a prison, they are in a cage, and they are hiding one aspect of their life. And
it may not even be cross-dressing, right? They see, I wish I could have this outlet.
It's a societal expectation they have to force to conform.
yeah, so it just feels like a lot of men are out there, blocking out parts of their personality and just living in a repressed kind of way.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons I have that picture of me cross-dressed on my Instagram pinned. So hey, this is nothing to be ashamed about. So if that is who you are, then just accept it. It takes a lot of time and introspection and reflection to arrive here, and everyone has their journeys. So yeah.
And sorry, there's just one interjection I want to make, that you spoke about listening to Amit Verma a little while back, and I want to bring that thing which Amit talks about, is that 2 of the most listened and probably the top 2 episodes on the entirety of his show is the loneliness of the Indian man and the loneliness of the Indian woman. And that's such a telling thing on our society, that we don't allow people to be who they want to be. And then they start building this loneliness around them, so that maybe in that loneliness they can be who they want to be.
Yeah, I've heard those episodes. Yeah, epic. It's true. I mean, when you don't have anyone to talk to about the things that you feel, then you feel like that umbrella in the corner, alone.
Wow.
And by yourself. Yeah, you do feel a lot of loneliness, and I wish more men were able to talk about what they are feeling and go to therapy for sure, because it helps. And discover themselves, not be afraid of who they are. I think the world will be a better place if men just be themselves.
Yeah.
I also feel the world will be a less angry and a less violent place if men are okay being who they are.
Yes.
Wow. I have one last question, Hari. I'm just going to quote something that you said in an interview a very, very long time back. This is not really advice, but something I truly believe in. This is a human cycle. You are born, you grow up, you get a job, get married, have kids, buy a house, and this goes on again and again. Even if you don't lift a finger, these things will automatically happen. And if they don't, our society is designed in a way to push you to do them. By the way, this is not like supposed to be queued up after this. This is just literally like I've written last question. Complaining that you don't have time for anything else apart from this is absolute bullshit. If you really want to do something, you will already be doing it in some way. You just need to acknowledge it and commit to it. This was a very long time back. Nothing that you have said in the last hour or so that you've been speaking leads me to believe that you have deviated from this. But would you like to update this quote in any way?
Yes. I believe...
And I don't remember when you had said this, but probably 2014 or 13 when you had given a couple of interviews.
Yeah. So, like I said, right, we are a part of Wilson College Nature Club. One of the things that came out of that experience is my project called Project 35 Trees.
Yeah.
It is a project
that is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think this is I
It's
think a quote
related.
from that.
Yeah.
A
So-
very young you with.
I was 26. And a friend of mine, his name is Anthony Karbari. He's a filmmaker. So both of us went on a tour of India where we traveled all of India using public transport, and it was completely crowd-funded. We collected 4 lakh rupees over a period of 3 months, and we traveled all of India planting trees in 35 states and union territories of India. 35 was the number then. I have lost count. So it was during that we got a lot of press coverage for 2 young people from Mumbai doing this. This quote is from that period, and I I think this can be attributed to my youthful foolishness. Life is hard. It is it's not like completely clockwork. You have to holding down a house, having a fully functional married life. All of it requires a lot of work, and I keep saying I wish I had done home science instead of doing BMM because maybe then I would be equipped to handle a house. I wouldn't say this thing as loosely again. I don't know how to update it.
Yeah, but I don't think anything from there is necessarily wrong. If anything, I would say that the answers that you've given actually validate this a little more. Maybe what you would do is instead of loosely giving this as a quote, you would create a beautiful zine out of it, and maybe that should sort of be
that's
the
a nice
next step.
idea.
And I think that's a great way to very naturally draw close to this conversation.
Yeah. And not even a zine. Why do we have to be restricted by format?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It could be something else completely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Apple 3D, the Vision Pro thing. So maybe something in spatial next could be what you're up to. Yeah, you're excited, right, about that. That's one thing I love about you, Hari. Even though all the work that you do is extremely physical in nature, a lot of it anyway, like you're so excited by these new possibilities, technologies, etc. So I, for one, will be very disappointed if you don't explore some of these new technologies, and because what I know is that you will use that medium for what it is and not because of a trend, right? You wouldn't do a 3D zine just because you would do something for that medium. And that's what makes me look forward to your work. Like there are some musicians who I follow because there is a certain reliability, and you know that you can expect the same thing from them every time, every like 2 or 3 years reliably. And then there are some artists who I follow because you have no idea what on earth they're going to be coming up with in the next album. One was pop, one was metal, one was jazz. You really don't know what they're going to come out with next. I feel that about you, not just for the topics, but also the format, making this very, very exciting. So I can only say all the best with everything that you have coming up next. And yeah, man, like I'm very excited to see every time like you post something, I know this is going to be one hell of an adventure. So thank you for all that you do. I don't know whether you consciously think about your audience this way, but as we have said, I think you do have an impact on them. You make them think. In some cases you make them cry. You made them laugh. So yeah, just keep on doing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worry. And I just want to say, in the best possible way, I think of you as the human Instagram. I don't know what I'm going to get, but somehow I know I'm going to like it.
Thank you so much. And I think that is a zine idea. Thank you for having me on your show.
Our pleasure.
I still regret not being a part of Simplified, but I'm glad I made time to be here.
Maybe this was the better format.
Thank you so much, and all the best to you. All the best to the people that you are guiding with 6% Club.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.